This episode of Idea Channel is brought to you by Squarespace. Aesthetics, generally, is a branch of philosophy concerned with the study and nature of beauty. Historically, it's applied to objects of fine art in an attempt to describe the often undescribable effect of great works. Recently, the term has been used popularly to refer to a sense of style. People recognize lots of different and coherent aesthetics. Impressionist and cyberpunk, Lisa Frank, and even Pokemon Trainer. More recently, though, I've seen aesthetic used in yet another way. Not as a mode of thought or a category, but as an adjective. Certain images, especially in certain corners online, are labeled as being aesthetic. For instance, you may have seen this comment under the EBN video Comply that we included in our Devour Digest YouTube Poop playlist. Or this on the Idea Channel subreddit in response to Bill Wurtz's amazing video about the history of Japan.
Japan should take the islands.
Aesthetic comments, or sometimes my aesthetic, happen all over, but they're strongly associated with Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest. They read as shorthand for, I like this, or this is my style. They announce a satisfaction with twitchy video, a photo of many pink things, or an attractive cabin interior. Aesthetic is frequently stylized, the text itself aestheticized, signaling aesthetic is both the same and distinct from aesthetics. What determines that sameness and distinction is what I'm curious about, especially as it relates to the internet. Because if we're talking simply about beauty, why not comment, "This is pretty," or "I like this," or simply click the like button? Stipulated we create ourselves using media, conspicuous appreciation especially, but aesthetic comments are something else. If aesthetic is, as the top voted Urban Dictionary definition claims, something that Tumblr weirdos say way too often and use for every damn thing under the sun, there's likely a more compelling or at least additional reason for its ubiquity. To me, aesthetic seems propositional, not descriptive. It doesn't just comment on the thing itself and the user posting it. It also makes assertions about the value of those things, what we judge them to be worth, and what we judge other people to judge them to be worth in relationship to ourselves, in the context where all of this judging takes place. Here, maybe this chart will help. This is my aesthetic, by the way. What I'm getting at is this linked sense of value communicated. For the person commenting, the subject of the comment, and the location that this happens. That Urban Dictionary definition would have us think aesthetic is just a word, used too much in some places. Not primarily an indicator of affect in the way this, WTF, or lol suggest. Even as their meanings shift, these worn shorthands are still reported as indicators of clear intention by their source. What's different then about the affect of, say, lol from that of aesthetic? One potential explanation is that many may consider, even implicitly, that the aesthetic process, the appreciation of beauty, is difficult or impossible to have online. That unlike museums, the internet can't fully host aesthetics because screens are filters. There are no originals. No one is really there. The internet is not real. We can laugh, agree, or be confused online, but maybe we can't fully appreciate beauty. This attitude claims real aesthetic experience comes only from real things. And the internet, a Tumblr post, Instagram photo, YouTube video, animated GIF, Twitch stream, etc., they aren't real, or real enough. It's the next chord in a progression began by Walter Benjamin's Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. When everything is an automated copy of a copy, artistic aesthetic aura is lost. Basically, digitally served objects are of a class which doesn't or can't in themselves contain beauty. You may write aesthetic, but that word and the experience claimed by it is hollow. One cannot have the real aesthetic experience online. But I might argue that one can't have the real aesthetic experience anywhere. If, as a class of objects, one claims internet things don't or cannot possess beauty, one relies on the idea that things themselves contain beauty, an inherent beauty outside of the brains and experiences of people. I don't think such a beauty exists, whether you're standing in a gallery or scrolling down your dash, though there has been endless back and forth about this throughout the history of philosophy. What counts as art? Is there such a thing as objective beauty?
And this is where I come in.
Oh, beautiful. Take it away, Ollie.
Thanks, Mike. The debate over what is an aesthetic experience is a big one in philosophy because it impacts so many other questions like what sorts of things can we appreciate aesthetically and how does that appreciation work exactly? Another way of framing the question is to ask what makes an aesthetic experience different from other kinds of experience? When you look at a work of art, some stuff you experience directly and other stuff you infer from personal background information, and that will affect what you think of the final product. Like if you watch The Avengers, your experience has a certain content, but you also infer a whole bunch of stuff from having seen the other Marvel films. Imagine a possible world in which a movie exactly like The Avengers is released, but none of the other Marvel films ever were. In that world, the audience is going, who's this green man? Why is that man a robot? Brian, what's going on? Even though the experience of the two audiences has the exact same audio-visual content. This has led some philosophers to distinguish between aesthetic value and artistic value. The aesthetic value of a work is what you get only by experiencing its form, its perceptible features. The artistic value is what you get when you infer everything else you can and which is relevant. If you like, the aesthetic value of a work of art is the same in all possible worlds, but the artistic value is tied to a particular world and maybe even a particular person. This has huge implications for what sorts of things we can appreciate aesthetically, which is what I talk about this week in my video over on PhilosophyTube.
Nice one. Thanks, Ollie. So everybody, make sure you head over to PhilosophyTube when you're done here. So, a theoretical difference between aesthetic and artistic value aligns with the thoughts of people like John Dewey, Sarah Urist Green, and full disclosure, me, who talk about art as an experience, not a thing. Neither people nor objects produce the meaning associated with artworks by way of that work's aesthetic value. Meaning, artistic value is produced by a process occurring between people and objects. That process takes place in a context. Humans are willing and often unstoppable machines for making meaning. We'll find it anywhere, in anything. Faces in chairs and food, sure. Patterns correctly and incorrectly recognized in everything. We're always creating meaning, investing and divesting an endless parade of objects and symbols with a significance sometimes intended, but often not. For us, things can't not signify. Even the radically new finds sense in its appearance as nonsense, which has meaning in vague associations, significations, and our own emotional reactions. To paraphrase Benedetto Croce, an image that does not express is an image that does not exist. Furthermore, and Wittgenstein talks about this a little bit, there's no way to divorce aesthetic sense or artistic value from existence in time, both personal and historic. What one finds appealing is dependent upon where and when they are. Is it Monday? Are they having a good hair day? What expectations do they have? And also, is it the year 1674 in Florence or 2016 in Viña del Mar, Chile? While aesthetic value may be contained in the form of a work, the appreciation of it, the artistic value, is not just in people, but in people, in time, in cultures. This fact may complicate the aesthetic process, but only because it fundamentally comprises it. Nelson Goodman, paraphrasing Ernst Gombrich, writes, "The eye comes ancient to its work. We simply can't divorce our judgments from our historically situated experiences. Our eyes, as a metonym for our sense of beauty and meaning, are old. They're laden with experience, eager to find some not purely aesthetic significance in all that we encounter. To describe the aesthetic process, one must describe the whole situation and culture of each person engaging in it. But we can't, for obvious reasons, plumb the inner states of each person appreciating some artifact. To understand aesthetic experience, Wittgenstein says we should look at what people do. He talks of a tailor-made suit. To show appreciation for its aesthetic qualities, what does one do? One wears it. Okay, one may hang it on a wall, one may pack it away for safety, but in a way this makes the suit no longer a suit. An object which is a suit first is made to be worn. This doesn't mean it's not also a work of art. As Lawrence Weiner said, an artist can say a cup of coffee is a work of art, but he's a damn fool if he says a cup of coffee is not a cup of coffee just because it's art. There's a similar tension in the digital object appreciated aesthetically for its artistic value. Our experience creates in it an artfulness. Though by this, it's not transformed into an easily recognized art object. It all remains just an image, just a YouTube video, just a tweet. So because we may miss it by looking at what they are, as Wittgenstein suggests, we should look at what people do with digital objects to see their aesthetic importance. One thing they do is comment aesthetic. Here, it's tempting to say that one wears that post as they would a suit. Those in view are asked to have an aesthetic experience of a person's post-constructed persona in a way they may have an aesthetic experience of the post itself. But Wittgenstein and Wiener are asking us to look literally, not metaphorically. To understand what aesthetic experience is like on Tumblr, or the internet generally, you have to understand what people literally do is comment and label, tag, categorize, and share. Aesthetic goes well beyond the personal, past identity construction. In all such posts, collectively, a value proposition is made. Where we assume whatever is placed in galleries, museums, and performance spaces is aesthetic in many, if not every sense, we assume an early 1989 Toyota Soarer, a glitchy landscape, or 90s skateboard company graphic design are not. The person labeling such things aesthetic may be establishing their persona, but they're also contributing to an understanding of those things themselves. They claim implicitly that it's worthy of aesthetic experience, and that where they've posted it, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, places not normally thought to host such experiences, are in fact capable. This process, and here comes a $20 word, de-reifies aesthetic experience. It shows us how it isn't one singular process meant for a standard assortment of objects placed in a strict context. Aesthetic admits that aesthetics is contextual and ongoing. It can be guided, influenced, directed, even demanded. While not everything is art, anything can be appreciated as art. And isn't that enough? So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, and I will respond to some of them in next week's comment response video. In this week's comment response video, we talk about your thoughts regarding Deadpool and phenomenology. If you want to watch that one, you can click right here or find a link in the doobly-doo. To continue the trend of announcing podcasts that I have been on, I've been on the last couple episodes of David McRaney's You Are Not So Smart podcast, which is super great. If you don't listen to it, you should, and I'm not just saying that because I've been on the last couple. I've been talking with him about fallacies and how they work, what they are, sort of my experience, having talked about them on Idea Channel. So if you want to listen to that, we'll put a link to that in the description as well. We have a Facebook and IRC and a subreddit, links in the doobly-doo, and the tweet of the week comes from Ivory Oasis, who asks something that we're actually going to spend a little bit of time talking about in the comment responses video this week, which is this idea of whether or not it's possible to say we are part of Deadpool's universe, that we are just all Deadpool in some way. Specifically the way in which we are just inside his head. We are figments of his imagination. So, you know, chew on that one for a little while. And hey, in case you were wondering, this episode of Idea Channel was sponsored by Squarespace. Whether your story is out of the ordinary or simply out of this world, you should tell it in an unforgettable way. With user-friendly tools and templates, Squarespace lets you capture your story with a captivating website. They also offer domains, hosting, and customer support. Start your trial today. Go to squarespace.com/ideachannel. And last but not least, this week's episode would not have been good or possible without the very hard work of these aesthetes. Which sounds a lot dirtier than it really is. Aestheticians? That sounds even worse.